And next up we have Ciardis Gardner Gleser. Ciardis was a student here at South when I came, which makes me feel so very young. I called her Cece back then. She's going to tell you her story, but she's a proud alumni of South, and she's very active in the Seattle community, both in the elementary school and middle schools, and she works really diligently on issues of diversity, race and ethnicity, and equity. She currently lives here in Seattle with her husband and 3 children. So please welcome Ciardis Gardner Gleser, alumni of South.
Good morning. Good morning. First off, I have to say how very special it is for me to be back here. And the other special thing are that my 2 bosses from work came in today, so that just makes me feel special. Okay, so I just want to share a story with you. It was a crisp fall afternoon. As I stared out of the stone-framed window, I noticed leaves falling, somersaulting to the ground. I sat in a room with heavy Tudor-style wood paneling. I sat in a chair reminiscent of an old schoolhouse chair. The chair was just as heavy as the paneling on the walls. It was made of a dark, rich wood. I noticed the red undertone of the wood, and I wondered if it was mahogany or perhaps cherry. The table at which I sat was strong, solid, substantial. The table was as sure of itself as the other 9 people sitting around it. I, on the other hand, I was distracted. You know that feeling of uneasiness or uncertainty that you get sometimes, but you aren't sure why? That's what I had. I could hear someone talking, but again my attention was pulled to the scenery outside of the window. This time my eyes sure of itself as the table and the 9 other people around it. Was it limestone that framed this window? Or was it just plain old cement? What was it? I then wondered if it got its confidence from the way it held the leaded glass in place. My eyes again met the leaves. Red, orange, varying shades of yellow, tumbling past the window, some spinning feverishly into tight cyclonic circles before continuing to fall. I bring myself back to the room. Why does everyone look so sure of themselves? I study the space immediately around me. The table, the people, the chair I'm sitting in. As I sit, I examine the chair, the wood, the spindles that wrap around me. I run my hand along the shape of the chair, the sides, the back, and then something catches my hand. It's a carving. I move my hand to see what it is. There it is, big and bold. Luxe veritas, light and truth. I look around the room. It's on all of the chairs. All of a sudden it hit me. The chairs had the same air of confidence that the table, the people, and the window had. A feeling came over me, a sense of understanding. I finally knew why I was feeling the way I was. It was that same feeling you would get when you were little and you spent the night at someone's house and you woke up and you weren't quite sure where you were. That's what I had. And it was in that moment I thought to myself, where the hell am I and how did I get here? It was time to mentally retrace my steps. Chaos, hunger, instability, homelessness, disappointment, possibilities, self-effacement, doubt. These were all things I knew. But what else did I know? Excuse me, where do I register? Oh, that would be the Robert Smith Building. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I love psychology with Mr. Rice. Oh my goodness, I have to write a persuasive speech. Ms. Pellman does not play. I can't study enough for this poli-sci test. Elections, the 3 branches, executive, legislative, and judicial. Dr. Othman's tests are big. Stress management with Mr. Colts-White, so necessary. Dendrochronology, the counting of tree rings, hominids, phenotypic variations. Mr. McCrath's classes had so much reading, but I enjoyed every minute. Unlike Luxe Veritas, I knew these things. Hey Cece, where are you going to transfer? Probably UW or Seattle U, but I'd love to go to a school like Columbia University. Then go, you can do it. I thought to myself, how can this person say this so matter-of-factly? How could Mr. McCrath say this with such authority, weight, and sureness? Did he know something or someone I didn't? He did. He knew me. You know how people always say, I'll believe it when I see it? Well, just recently I heard it another way. I was told, you have to believe it to see it. This is what Mr. McCrath did for me. He believed it and he'd seen it, and soon I noticed that other instructors did as well. What did they know that I didn't know? They knew me better than I knew myself. Now I knew that I had been doing well at South, but why had I done so well? What was different here? I soon figured it out. All of the instructors I had at South expected it from the beginning. Can having people expect you to do well really make a difference in your outcomes? I am here to say it can make all the difference. From going through high school where there were no real expectations to a place that set them high completely changed my world. I applied to schools that I would have never considered or felt that I had a chance of reaching. Soon I began to receive acceptances, and I would share the results with Mr. McCrath, and he would say, "That's great," or "That's wonderful news." At first, his reaction confused me. I wonder why he didn't seem surprised when I was over the moon. I was happier than I'd ever been. It was because he believed it before I even mailed out my applications. What was news to me wasn't news to him. Just a few weeks ago, I again found myself in a room similar to the one I described earlier, the one with heavy Tudor-style wood paneling. I was sitting around a large table again, with people sitting around it that were so sure of themselves. The fog of self-assurance in the room was so thick, it was as if when someone spoke, their confidence was like warm breath meeting cold air. I began to stare out the window. But unlike before, the feeling of familiarity of being in this room had comforted me. I sat up and began to examine the chair I was sitting in, the wood, the spindles that wrapped around me, and I ran my hand along the shape of the chair, the sides, and the back, and I closed my eyes and ran my fingers across the carving. I read it, like Braille, I read it. Luxe Veritas, Yale University. I knew exactly where I was, and it was in that moment I sat up straight and confident, and I held my head up high. This part is hard for me. I was just as sure of myself as the others around the table. And I smiled and quietly said to myself, start here, go anywhere. Thank you.